These are two fighter kites that I made, and the only real difference between them is the nose leading edge reinforcement. This is a fairly stiff piece of thin mylar, and this is packing tape, just a strip of packing tape I cut to be about a ½ inch wide to reinforce this nose leading edge, because this area of the kite gets a tremendous amount of abuse by the wind. So these are the two things that I typically would do to strengthen this area. But recently I've decided to try experimenting with other ways to stiffen this area and to see if it had any impact on the way the kite flies. And what I started to do was, the first thing I did was and this was a while ago, I scalloped this leading edge of the nose. And on this kite, I also did it along the trailing edge. But this, the impact of this slowed the kite's flight and made the kite virtually silent also. So then I thought, well, maybe there are other ways to deal with it. And I decided to try something that a kite making friend of mine uses once in a while, and that is to put a piece of 0.02 or 0.03 carbon fiber rod right along the edge. And I just glued this on right here. You can see that. Now, when I flew this kite, it flew very similar to the other kites that I've made with the tape reinforcing this. But it did one thing that was a little different. And I think it might be a very, very good quality, but I haven't had a chance to test it very much yet. But what I noticed is that when I'm flying the kite horizontally, parallel to the ground, as the kite comes into different configurations of wind, either turbulence or whatever it might be, from one side to the other, it doesn't seem to affect the kite's parallel flight nearly as much as not having this carbon fiber rod right here on the nose. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Next, what I did was I thought, well, maybe I should put a piece of tape underneath this rod before I apply the rod to the nose leading edge, and that would give it a little bit more reinforcing, and of course would add a little bit extra weight. So this is what I did. I put a piece of tape here, and then I put a 0.02 diameter carbon fiber rod right along the edge. Now when I make these, I just use T8000 glue. I put a bead of glue along here. This is before I cut the kite out, and put this rod right on the glue, put wax paper on top, press it down onto the glue, and then remove the wax paper and cut the kite out using, in this case, I used a hot knife. So on this kite, it has the leading edge with a carbon fiber rod, and in addition, a little bit of reinforcing inward from the rod itself. And the way this kite flew was very similar to this one. Very little difference that I could tell. So then I thought, well, what if I were to perforate this nose leading edge? Now, scalloping it, I knew, slowed it down, so I didn't want to do that. But I didn't know whether putting holes along the part of the nose leading edge here, just inward from the edge itself, what impact that might have. Well, it also slows the kite. Not a lot, but noticeably slower. Otherwise, it seemed to perform exactly the same as the kite without these holes. So then I thought, well, one more try, something a little bit different. And what I did here was I put packing tape across this whole section from here all the way in the nose. This whole area is stiffened with packing tape. And then before I cut the kite out, packing tape's on it, and then I put the .02 diameter carbon rod along the edge, glued it on. And this kite flew very well also. It had a little bit of trouble in lighter wind compared to the others, but it flew equally well. I didn't notice a lot of difference except in its need to have a little stronger wind, which probably has or might have, I don't really know, something to do with this extra stiffening here in the nose area. So that's what I've been working on in the past few weeks.